take measures to at least, provide some palliatives for the most vulnerable people. So that's what I think.
Now, what kind of palliatives would you want to see put in place for these most vulnerable people that you mentioned? Because as it is, it seems like organized labor is also fighting for the interest of workers, and they're asking for minimum wage review, asking also for tax holidays for certain categories of Nigerians. We don't know what category that is, but then if minimum wage is reviewed, only a few people are captured in that because not everyone works for the federal government.
Again, that's why sometimes I ask this question: who really is Labour fighting for? It postures as Labour is fighting for Nigerians, but at the end of the day, it looks like Labour is only fighting for Labour. Because the question is, how many businesses can afford at this time to increase wages for their employees? Most can't. So I don't have a problem with Labour asking for more. I mean, they should get more. The minimum wage really is a joke. I would say that I don't think it's the kind of minimum wage that under the current circumstances people should be earning. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really solve the problem. So to your question, I think, yes, minimum wage needs to be reviewed urgently. I think that needs to be done. And I don't think we need a strike for that to be effective. It just needs to be negotiated and within a time frame. I think rather than going on a strike, what Labour should be saying, okay, let's give the government 2 months and let's negotiate within that window. So at least the government has a chance to settle down and take steps. Let's see what steps can be taken. Okay. Tax break. Tax break would make sense. Unfortunately, when you give tax breaks for certain categories of people in a country where states are already struggling with revenue shortages. So federal government makes money at the expense of states because federal subsidy is gone, so federal government is saving, but then states are going to lose from tax breaks because states collect tax from individuals. So Lagos State, for example, runs heavily on taxes, on the income tax and all of that. So if you say tax breaks, then that affects the economy of Lagos and several other states that are struggling. So how exactly is that going to work? What I see is, for instance, urban centers, for instance, governments in urban centers, Lagos, Rivers, can look at the transport system and say, okay, what can we do to make transportation easier? Lagos State already has the LAG bus and their Lamata buses. I think it is during this period that can take for the next 2 months or 3 months, while government is working up palliative, to give a discount on the cost of riding on those buses. Okay. I would think that the conditional cash transfer that the last administration was doing, this is a good time to review it and rejig it, and actually pass on some of the savings from the subsidy to the vulnerable. When we say vulnerable, we're talking about people who are earning below a particular amount, people who are out of jobs, adults who are out of jobs. It's not going to provide food for them. At least you call it some transport subsidy again. So it's like taking subsidy away from the rich, and sorry to say this, but the subsidy was benefiting the rich more than the poor. Okay, so take some of that savings from the subsidy and pass it on directly to people, some demographics that you have to come up with some measures. Or somebody who earns less than X amount per month, which means you must subject your account to review by the government to know that, oh, okay, you actually have income less than X amount per month, you work in certain sectors, or you are a petty trader, and then we just pass on some token to help with the extra costs of transportation. think these are some of the things that can be done. Um, uh, what needs to be done quickly are actions that stimulate the economy. If the economy is stimulated and people are earning an income, I think things will become easier over time.
Mm.
That needs to be the focus, rather than just spending money on, on down the drain pipe.
Let's talk a little more on the transport issue that you mentioned. NLC is saying, look, there's a 250 billion naira or so set aside for conversion of vehicles to CNG usage and the filling stations as well to be able to sell compressed natural gas to vehicle users. So they're able to, instead of use CNG instead of the regular PMS as well. Rather, the natural gas would be a lot cheaper. Saying from the former Minister of State for Petroleum, according to the former Minister of State for Petroleum, that gas. About a liter of gas would go for about 90 naira or so, and so it would provide a lot of buffer or cushion for many car users and transport workers in the country. What do you make of that argument?
I think that's also a creative way. We really need to be creative. So let's move some people up to off PMS to natural gas. It has a double purpose. Saves the environment and also makes the demand for PMS lower, which now the market forces come into play. And the players in the PMS field begin to look at creative ways of dropping costs, of dropping their prices. That's what we want to achieve. Now, how quickly can this be done? That's the question. It's not something that will be done in a month or 2 months or 3 months. The conversion will take a while. So what I would agree that the government can say, okay, for certain categories of people, unfortunately, when you say certain categories of people, and this is not peculiar to Nigeria, anywhere in the world, if you don't manage it well, people who don't belong to that category will get the take advantage of the system to hijack it and make a mess of it. So, question is, should government give these converters free of charge to certain categories of people? I think it would be a way to go. But rather than saying, okay, we'll give it to you free of charge, I would want to do what I think it was Additional doing Jonathan that passed subsidized fertilizers to farmers in a very efficient way. So rather than give the money or sell fertilizers, go and buy fertilizers cheap, the monies were credited into the farmers' accounts somehow for the purpose of fertilizers. So credit some money for the purpose of these converters, and that money can only be spent. Okay, technology allows you to do this now. Spent, it's a token. Okay, it's tokenize it. Let it be something that can only be how do you call it now? Redeemed at the point of pickup of some of these converters. So people get their converters cheaper than they should normally pay, and this should help people to move up. Everybody will probably embrace it. The challenge is it can't be done in a month. It can't be done in 2 months. Probably it's going to take several months, but we need to start as soon as possible and move off PMS. It has many advantages, okay? But we can't say, oh, you must hold on to subsidy until these things are done. Since 2012 or thereabout, when we did Occupy Lagos, we've been saying you must hold on to subsidy until certain conditions are met. And more than 10 years later, we're still saying that you must fulfill those conditions before subsidy is removed. How many governments after? Almost 4 governments after. And we're still singing the same song. Is that not a measure of insanity? We need to begin to look differently and make different demands. But to say this subsidy shouldn't go until those same conditions we've been asking for 10 years, it's obvious that we want to continue the same situation for another 10 years.
All right, now let's still look at the Ministry of Petroleum, for instance. So in the last administration, the president was Minister of Petroleum, and people said his performance was abysmal, and with what's currently happening, the president is about to or would be making some appointments in the coming days. Um, what do you think? Do you think that the president should occupy that same position as Minister of Petroleum, like we had in the past administration? Or what do you make? What do you think? How do you think the president should constitute his cabinet? I know you cannot tell him who to appoint, but what kind of persons would you want to see, taking up such positions in the country?
So again, like you said, I can't choose for him, but I think more than what kind of persons, it should be what principles should guide his what should undergird the kind of appointments he makes. Okay. Fortunately, the democracy also comes at a cost where you are forced to have to choose between a lot of times between a limited set of people, whether you like it or not. People who invested, people who supported you, and the political economy. So at the end of the day, you still will have to appoint politicians. So I think first he needs to think of a fair balance between politicians and technocrats into in his appointments. Very importantly, I believe that even in the political class, there are people now, unlike maybe 20 years ago or more, where politicians are all career politicians and they have nothing but politics. I think now we have a fair mix of professionals who have gone into politics that you can pick from. But beyond that also, you need to look for people who have the right experience for the industry. First question, should the president be Minister of Petroleum Resources? I would say a big no. In as much as petroleum plays a very important role in our economy, I think the president micromanaging that place is at the detriment of others. And you can see that. So Buhari did it, and it was still a total mess, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so there's no need to do that. What should guide him? We need to build investor confidence. So in appointing people to positions, you want to make the kind of appointment where the investing community, both local and international, they need to say, oh, I like this. Oh, wow, I like that. This looks good. Mm-hmm. And that way, when you boost investor confidence, you pull in the much needed investment into the economy. So that needs to be done. You can't have an appointment where the investing company is like, what is this rubbish? Okay. He probably won't get 100%, but if he gets a 70%, okay, where the investing community says, wow, this is the right move, I think we're in a good place. Okay. We also need to look at what are those critical places where in appointing people, it's not about politics. It's not about ethnicity. It's about competence. Absolutely, purely, who are the best that we can get to manage these places. Of course, petroleum will be one of those places. That's where our money is coming from right now. But we also need to look at the security. Okay, he has promised to rejig the architecture, and I think his NSA appointment is a shock to me.
Okay. That's yet to be confirmed, even though some very important sources have mentioned that the president, we're yet to get the official confirmation of that appointment. So maybe would keep our fingers crossed and see how the appointment comes out.
Fingers crossed on that. But definitely, it can't be the same bag. It can't be an appointment from the same bags, as far as I'm concerned. There needs to be something done differently about how security is handled. Honestly, if I had a crystal ball to look into, I would gladly look into it, but I don't. And I really wish him some major success on that. I think some other areas that would need serious look at in terms of the kind of people who have a stake, who have the expertise, at least who understand what needs to be done. People who can think differently, okay, in agriculture, and this is not because I'm a farmer, it's because right now we need as a country to boost, we are not maximizing our potential in this field. So we need somebody who is able to come in and think differently. Not necessarily a farmer that's been a farmer all his years and all of that. No, you need somebody who is able to think radically and transformatively. So let's do something different in this area. Okay, across the entire value chain or agriculture value chain, not just the production. We need to think very seriously about education. There's been a lot of our educational sector is destroying the future, and that needs to be rejigged. Okay, so he needs to think seriously about that. We need some measure of peace and sanity in that place, and he needs to think very, very critically about this area. Okay, so at the end of the day, who should he be looking at? People who can think differently, well, especially in those critical sectors. People who can think differently. We need to depart from the same old bag of oranges. Okay? And like I said, he needs to have a fair balance, yes, but beyond just taking a politician, because the politician, it also needs to be based on competence. Okay? I think that I'm not sure if I've been helpful to him.
Very well. Competence is key there. But then let's stay with agriculture, which is your constituency at the moment. In the Buhari administration, when the Buhari administration came in 2015, we heard so much. There was so much talk about diversifying the economy and making agriculture a revenue earner for the country and all, or an alternative revenue earner for the country. But in the last 8 years, we haven't seen so much done in the agriculture export sector. I remember there was a time where yams were being exported, and before they got to the destinations, a lot of them got bad and all that. What do you think this administration can do to improve agriculture to a point where it becomes a really big revenue earner for Nigeria, even if not across the entire world, within the African continent? What do you think can be done? We have people say we have the resources, we have arable land, we have good rainfall and all that.
So there are a number of problems that I see in this sector, in spite of the huge potential. And I would say that even the last administration made attempts. Unfortunately, there are programs that should have made that difference. The Anchor Borrower Scheme, for instance, the small loans from CBN, NIRSAL, AGNIS, and all of those financial interventions. But I don't think the result was quite commensurate. There were some successes, I would say. For instance, in rice production, you will see that, yes, the initial pains of the ban on importation and all of that has yielded the necessary result of increase in rice production. Now you see people actually going to rice production, people actually going into rice processing and all of that. So that was a good stuff. Now, we need to be able to replicate this in a lot of places. And it's not just about export. Export is important. But how do you export yam from a country where people don't even have enough to eat? So in as much as we want to export, I can tell that even if the local economy is able to, if you are able to produce enough food for the local economy, the economy moves. Okay? And then, but again, one important area that you've talked about comes to an area where successive administrations have failed woefully is post-production. Okay, so the waste that we experience is too massive. And this area, I think, again, it's really about investment. It's best done with government encouraging private investment into things like storage, okay, storage systems, investments into processing, okay. Now, it's a whole chain where you are giving inputs to the farmer, but also assuring that everything produced will be taken up. So the average tomato farmer, vegetable farmer, also any perishable, for instance, the average farmer probably loses half of his revenue to waste. By the time he gets into the typical local markets, if he's not able to sell it for that day, then that product is wasted. Go to the local markets in Lagos, in Abuja, everywhere, and just look at their dump sites. You see the amount of waste. So while we say cost of food is high, the problem is that the waste is also extremely high. So government needs to look critically at post-production, post-harvest storage, distribution, effective distribution, effective storage, and processing. That way the farmer can get more for his labor, and you can also find other sources of revenue into the economy. And then we now look at exports. We can't export everything. Okay. Now the reason why our exports get rejected is because also there's no proper coordination from production to the point of export. There are no proper certifications. There are no proper. How do you transport yam and the yam are spoiled before it gets to destination? It's proper handling. So these are areas that I think government needs to also focus on, apart from boosting production. Boosting production they must, but beyond that, they need to make sure that we get value for money. Proper reward for the labor that goes into production by fixing the post-production chain. That area needs to be radically rejigged.
Very well said. Now, it's really funny how time flies. I'm going to have to bring in our callers a bit shortly before I let you go. I know I promised to let you off early, but I'm going to have to bring in one or two callers, and then you get off the conversation. Stay with us, please. The conversation continues. 090-7353-0044 and 090-8766-8888 are the numbers to call to be a part of the conversation. You can send messages to 090-9705-4450.
The 2023 WAEC May-June results analysis for Stella Maris College Abuja based on distinctions are as follows. Parallel distinction 90, 8 distinction and above 50, 7 distinction and above 43, 6 distinction and above 38, 5 distinction and above 14, 4 distinction and above 3, 3 distinction and above 3, total 170. So why not choose Stella Maris College Abuja today? The dates for entrance exams are 24th June and 12th August 2023 respectively. Stella Maris College is at Area 1 and Wumba for day college, while boarding college is at Life Camp Abuja. For more enquiries, call 0809 037 3727 or 0817 204 7070 or check us online www.smsabuja.com.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Thank you for keeping it with us. This is Eagles Outlook on your radio experience. You can count on. It's about 9:32 right now. The conversation continues. Jump in now with your 2 cents. Call 090-7353-0044 and 090-8766-8888. SMS and WhatsApp messages go to 090-9705-4450. Now, also check us out on our socials at Eagles FM Abuja. We're streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook. Go there and drop your contributions to the conversation as well. We've been talking about, labor versus the federal government on subsidy removal, and now we're looking at other aspects of the Nigerian economy, paying attention to agriculture as well. This morning, my guest has been Mr. Martin Elugbaju. Those of you who had tried to call in earlier, now would be the time for you to send your thoughts in. and join the conversation. 09073530044 and 09087668888. Mr. Lugwaju, so insecurity has been said to be one of the biggest problems that farmers in the country are facing. It has affected agriculture and outputs over the last couple of years. What do you think should be done? I know we talked about the appointments for the security architecture and rejigging the security architecture, but what do you think should be done to make sure that farmers are able to go back to their farms, to continue to produce food for Nigeria?
Thanks, here, Nacho. I was going to mention that earlier, that part of the challenge is no matter what inputs, what help you try to give, if people can't go to the farms, then you can't get value for the investments you put in. And unfortunately, this area, first, I think the easy one, the herder, when I say easy, I don't say it lightly. I think in terms of fixing, because again, when you look at the issues, there's the banditry, there's the herder-farmer clashes, and then there are the kidnappings in the southwest. I think the easier one to fix is the herder-farmer clashes. I don't think the last administration did a good job of it. They also have had a baggage where the president was perceived as being in support of the herders. So I think this new president has a clean slate to start on and bring the key players to the table. So find a way to say, look, let's it's almost like saying, let there be a ceasefire. Is it always going to be as easy as I said it? No. But I think if he approaches it with a sense of fairness and equity, there will be some sense of there should be some level of peace in that part. That's what I think. What really is the struggle about? It's really about resources. Okay, it's really about resources. Resources are shrinking. Okay, families, communities are expanding. Urbanization is expanding into the farm, and there's what we call encroachment into the traditional grazing spaces of herders. These are known problems. Now, the solution could not have been handled by the last administration because of the baggage where they are not trusted. But at the end of it, this new government needs to look critically at it again. Ranching needs to be something that's into. How it is done, there has to be some form of subsidies. Okay, now the word subsidy is coming in again, and I don't want to use subsidy because we don't want to create another monster like we had in the oil and gas sector. Let me call it intervention. There has to be some kind of interventions from government that make ranching possible. There has to be some private sector-led initiative that make ranching possible and sustainable. That would deal with the herder-farmer clashes. Okay? They can't continue with the old grazing method. It just cannot continue. But we also need to show good faith to the herders by providing alternatives for them and quickly. If this is done quickly, it will at least solve that part. The remaining part of the security issues, which is banditry, I think let's see what the president will do with the rejigging of the architecture. Unfortunately, I'm no security expert, and I'm sure there are more in this area than meets the eye. Okay, the best time to have dealt with this problem was before it became Hydra-headed. Right now, it's Hydra-headed. It's a business that is making money. So basically, what you want to do in dealing with this insecurity issue is taking away people's sources of income, illegal income, as it were. I'm sure there are people in the security agencies that are making money off it, as well as people in the kidnapping business and banditry business that have made it a living. So this is going to be a really tough one. But with some innovation, I want to hope that he's able to at least arrest it to a large extent. I think this is a good time to take a second look at state policing and a serious look at state policing. It's be perfect. It's not going to be perfect, but it is necessary. I don't think the federal security architecture is able to solve the problem. Some of these problems are localized and they need to be dealt with at the local level. Let each state find something that works to deal with it. Now, there is a risk here with everything that there's always the risk of abuse. Okay? There will always be the risk of abuse. We've had situations where Amotekun goes to arrest somebody and then they torture the person and all of that. Rather than saying we will avoid state policing because of abuse, what we want to do is put in a mechanism that deals quickly and decisively with every identified abuse. So where a state police or a state police agency abuses their power, let there be a mechanism that quickly deals with it with stringent punishment that is not long run. That way you discourage abuse at the state levels. But to say we avoid state policing because of the likelihood of governors hijacking it or abusing it and all of that, I think it's just like putting our heads in the sand. Okay, the federal agencies are overstretched. Now, one area also that I think might help. Okay, it's not directly security related, but ultimately it has an impact. Is the issue of federalism, true federalism. I think it's unless there's something more than meets the eye.
I was just going to ask about that.
Okay.
Yes, so the president is one that has been over time said to be a proponent of true federalism, and all, especially resource control and all of that. Now that he's on the saddle, do you think that he's going to look in that direction and ensure that this is put in place to make sure that there's some level of what's the common of level playing field for all of Nigerians?
So it's an area that cannot be avoided, and if anyone should look at it critically, I think it's the current president. Otherwise, then he would be a what do you call it now? A toothpaste, a set price for all the years asking for true federalism and then now getting here and not being able to do it. I remember when he was governor, he was the first governor then that went into power to try and generate power for Lagos State, which at that time the laws didn't even allow. Okay, and they had to do a lot of struggle to even get it off the ground. Okay, I think this is the time to identify key sectors that need to be devolved back to the state. Security is one of them. Needs to be devolved back to the states. Okay, a lot of resource control issues need to be looked at. Let states develop their resources and have a mechanism where the federal government gets some form of royalty. Okay, there's so much mineral resources that are wasting away and not developed across the state. And some of these create security problems ultimately, because right now I can tell you for free that there's gold mining going on in Osun State. Okay, a lot of illegal gold, or disorganized gold mining. You find people carrying weapons to gold mine. Now, this is already a keg of gunpowder. It's only a matter of time before it becomes a Zamfara situation. Now, if there was states controlling their resources, then each state can develop this mineral at their own level. Now, that's why I link it to insecurity. Okay? The insecurity in Zamfara at the end of the day is not about header farmer crisis. It's more linked to the mining industry that was not controlled from the beginning. Okay? So these are things that true federalism will help us deal with. Okay? That once states are controlling security, controlling their resources, there is that healthy competition to develop it. Let's now find who develops that better. Then they have revenue to run the state. When they have revenues to run the state, then there's jobs for the idle youth. When there's jobs created for idle youth, there's less propensity for evil. The devil finds use for work for idle hands. Okay, and this runs across the state. I heard about young people who are aspiring, applying to be trained as kidnappers in some parts of the country. I saw that as a couple of years ago. Now it's a problem. So we need to reverse this by enabling the state to build their economies rather than everybody coming every month to the federal government for handouts.
Very well said. Let's bring in a caller now. 09073530044. Hello. Lost that connection there. Anyway, let's look at the message from Sanusi. You may want to call us back, please. Let's call back. I missed a couple of your calls earlier. Now, Sanusi from Suleja says, "Good morning, Prince. Insecurity cannot be overemphasized. One cannot be spending money. One can be spending money when there is life." Okay, I think one can only be spending money when there's life. I think major or the number one need of human life is safety. Before you can talk of food, shelter, and what have you. A safe society is a good place for business and other things to thrive. So security and lives and property should be taken seriously and addressed. It is key to national development. God bless Nigeria and God bless Eagles FM. Sanusi, thank you very much for that one. Also, let's see if we can squeeze in one more caller before we let my guests go this morning. Call in now. Hello, good morning. Okay, seems like there's something wrong with the phone lines. Now, Mr. Lugaju, one last question and then we'll let you go. We've taken much of your time this morning. Getting to the National Assembly is where the laws are made. And recall that you mentioned earlier that the current president, when he was Lagos State governor, had tried to, solve the power problems in Lagos State by bringing in a private or state-owned power, generating company. But then he had issues. The last administration signed in a couple of bills towards the winding down of the administration. One of those is the bill that allows for states to generate and distribute power, which is good. But then there's a current tussle in the leadership of the National Assembly, with the president and the APC zoning or micro-zoning the leadership of the National Assembly, and the kind of seeming chaos that has generated, or tensions that has generated in the National Assembly. Now, there's something peculiar playing out. The fact that the president has nominated someone from the North Central to be to serve as secretary to the government of the Federation. Some people are saying, look, that has truncated the chances of the North Central in its agitation to produce the leader of the National Assembly. Now, that may most likely leave the Northeast and the Southeast and the the South in this race for the National Assembly. How do you think that the relationship between the National Assembly and the current administration should work, so that the country is able to experience some level of growth and development?
Let me just drop this comment. It's unfortunate that where we are in our politics, there's much more emphasis on where the semi-president comes from and where the House of Rep speaker comes from. Much more emphasis on these than their leadership abilities and whether they have a vision that matches what Nigeria needs at this time. And that's unfortunate because really, I hope that in a couple of years, hopefully the generation after my children's generation, these issues will no longer matter. Okay? But right now it is where we are. I think micro-zoning was, even for me, a bit of a challenge, because what we are basically saying is that the president has selected who should be the speaker, and the president has selected who should be the the Senate president. Okay, as much as this may be good for him, it also may not. I don't see as the best way for our democracy. So I would rather want a situation where it's wide enough. Yes, you want to ensure that certain sections of the country, certain regions don't feel left out from the government, especially the South, South, and Southeast. So I would have rather had it left open for those specific regions, and let there be competition, let the politicking begin, because you also want a leader, a Senate leader or a speaker who has the right clout and the right support from the members of the National Assembly, so that we can have a stable National Assembly. Right now, we need a National Assembly that is stable. We need a National Assembly that is collaborative, not a rubber stamp, but collaborative with the government, not one that loggerheads and constantly trying to prove that they are independent. No. Yes, you need to be independent, but no, you don't need to be confrontational or recalcitrant. Right now, we need collaboration that works between the executive and the legislative arm. I think that's one of the reasons why I was quite happy with the chief of staff appointment. I think it's probably one of the most brilliant appointments that could have been made. Hopefully, his years of experience in the National Assembly means he has all the connections. He knows who is who. He knows who are the influencers. That way, he will probably be able to help the president to pass through whatever reforms he wants to pass through. Okay, so I think that's a good one. Right now, what we hope for is that we get a Senate, a leader, and a speaker who has the clout to also move the National Assembly in the right direction. Okay, that would help us. But to have somebody in post where more than half of the House does not support, that creates unnecessary rancor that's not going to work well for the government. Those are my thoughts.
And this is a good place to leave the conversation now with you, Mr. Martin Elugbaju, public affairs commentator, tech expert, as well as a farmer. Thank you so much for talking with us this morning. We appreciate your, the wealth of your experience and knowledge that you've been able to share with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. And this is where we leave the conversation this morning. Thank you to everyone who's been a part of it, to those of you who sent in messages, and those of you who tried to call, but we couldn't take your call because, you don't want to interrupt the flow of a recess person on the show. We really apologize. Let's get into it. Tomorrow we'll talk more on some other subjects in the polity. My name is Iheanacho Prince. Keep it with us on your radio experience. You can count on Business News is up next, and right after that, it will be time for the Midday Extra show right here on Eagles 102.3. My name is Iheanacho Prince. Bye now.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.